Joining me now, Representative Andrew Collins. He is the House Minority Leader for the 95th Arkansas General Assembly. He's a Democrat of Little Rock. Representative Collins, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Let's begin with the fact that the House minority, the Democrats, picked up one whole seat. You're still not at 25 where you can block the supermajority status there, but does having one more seat, does that give you any more firepower in the House?
I think it does. It matters. It's the first time we've picked up a net gain of seats in about 20 years in Arkansas, and it was in a tough year nationally for Democrats. So I was heartened by that, and I think as long as we're moving in the right direction, that helps.
Let's talk about some legislation that you filed that are part of the Democrats' package for this session. We'll talk about a little of those, or a few of those bills, but I guess just first of all, without the majority that you don't have, how do you plan on passing some of this package, or is some of this stuff just statement legislation that you feel like needs to be made?
Well, it does a couple things. I mean, I think first and foremost, we represent people all across the state, and we heard from people, and these are some of the things they care about. So we want to be working for the people of the state, let them know these are things that we're going to fight for, and then we want to actually fight for them. And we, as Democrats, every session do pass legislation. Obviously, it requires some bipartisan support in order to get the majority that's required. But we do plan on working on all this, and we'll see where it all falls out. I mean, I've had positive feedback from some Republicans about some of this legislation. Others, obviously, is more of an uphill battle, but we're going to at least make the battle, make the effort, and see where it shakes out. And honestly, and if it doesn't get passed, and if there's no willingness to work with us on this, we'll just talk about that in the next campaign and remind people that if you want this done, you're going to have to vote for more Democrats to get it done.
Gotcha. All right, let's begin with one that is going to have some bipartisan support, but it may not have the governor's support, and that is your legislation to extend Medicaid coverage for postpartum care for mothers to a full year. The governor has said she's opposed to that, but there are Republicans in the legislature that want to see that happen along with Democrats. Do you think that there is going to be some ability to persuade the governor to your side on this one? And do you think that the bill has the chance to pass even with her opposition?
Well, I hope so. I mean, we're the last state that has not done this, and this is making sure that women who give birth have the ability to stay on Medicaid health coverage for a year after birth instead of 90 days as we do it now. This is kind of the low-hanging fruit of maternal health. We are last in the country in maternal health here in Arkansas, and every other state has done this. So this will help save lives. This will help keep women insured after giving birth. It will help make families healthier. I just don't see the rationale to not do this. It doesn't even cost the state very much money. I do hope that the governor can be persuaded. And I think seeing the bipartisan support and all the talk that's been going on statewide really about this issue in the last couple months certainly helps.
All right, one that will have a tough uphill battle to pass is your Restore the Roe Act. This is in response to the Dobbs decision that struck down Roe v. Wade. You basically want to change the law in terms of women's access to abortion rights. Is this a statement piece of legislation that you kind of want to put out there and say these are the I guess this is the challenge for you here, or do you think that there is some sort of support for exemptions or some sort of restoration?
I think we have to recognize first that reproductive health is part of maternal health. And so, right now in Arkansas, we have this extreme abortion ban where even a woman who would suffer, whose health would suffer, cannot get an abortion if it would protect the health of the mother. And so we have to make that case, and we have to be clear about this as being part of what we need to do to improve maternal health outcomes in Arkansas. The other thing regarding this is we have OBGYNs leaving the state and not wanting to come to the state. And I believe a big part of that is this extreme abortion ban. We had about a 20% reduction in applications to UAMS OBGYN program 2 years in a row. That's a precipitous drop. And in a state where one of our biggest challenges is lack of healthcare providers for these women, We cannot afford to lose OBGYNs, and this is definitely part of it. Obviously, an uphill battle in our legislature. I do think that when the people have had a chance to vote on these bills and proposals in other states, there's a much different response. And hopefully, this will be an ongoing conversation, and it may have to go back to the people at some point. I know there is a previous effort to do something similar.
I will segue to an issue that, again, I think has some bipartisan support. It is certainly affects women, and it also affects taxes in the state. You filed a bill for what's called a pink tax exemption. This would remove the sales tax on feminine hygiene products. There was an effort to put this on the ballot last time that was unsuccessful. It had some other components to it. I do sense that there's bipartisan support for this. Do you think that this is a tax exemption that there is broad support for in the Arkansas legislature?
I do think that there's support for it. I mean, it's been introduced in similar versions and not gotten over the hump in previous sessions. But we have to recognize that it's not just about the period of giving birth. New mothers face a lot of costs, and we're taxing things like feminine hygiene products and baby feeding equipment and diapers that really have a disproportionate impact on the bottom line of mothers and families in the state. So if we could exempt those from sales tax, we would put less of a burden as these families are trying to get off the ground and conserve a little bit of money. Put more money in people's pockets, I think, is something that should be a popular bipartisan idea on both sides of the aisle.
You've got two bills affecting legislation. You've got more than two bills affecting legislation, but I'm going to pick up on two of them that reverse things that were changed in the LEARNS Act. One is to repeal the Educational Freedom Account Acts. This is the voucher program that was part of the governor's package there. I sense that there's still a lot of popular support among Republican legislators for this. You also want to create the Teacher Fair Dismissal Act, which was part of what LEARNS struck down as well in terms of how teachers could be fired in this state. What do you assess your chances for either one of those are? What again? What's the statement that you're trying to make there? And do you feel like you've got any type of legislative support among Republicans for either of those?
Well, so the voucher bill obviously does face an uphill battle, mostly because it's been one of the governor's priorities. But I think we have to recognize vouchers are a huge cost to our state already. Here in entering the third year, we're looking at around $275 million potentially being spent on this. And this is money, public money going to private schools. There's not a good track record of success. I think we have to put this out there and recognize that as we continue to see outcomes, if they're what we have seen in other states and they're not very good outcomes, there is a path to roll this back and reinvest in public schools, which actually serve 95% of Arkansas kids. That's where we should be focused. The other thing that bill does, by the way, is it would reform how we fund special education in the state. Special education has been underfunded for a long time. It also doesn't follow the students who are special education students. So you've got money going to different parts of the state that's really not properly matching where it should be going to actually serve the need. So yes, obviously that one does face an uphill battle, but it's important for us to be talking about. Then the other one you were asking about, sorry.
Teacher Fair Dismissal Act,
Teacher
yes.
fair dismissal, yeah. That goes to the point that if we want to attract and retain teachers in the state, we need to make the teaching profession a profession that welcomes and supports teachers. Democrats, and I'll remind you, even some of these things may seem far-fetched, but Democrats were the ones who proposed $50,000 minimum teacher salary, and that was then adopted into the LEARNS Act. So some of these proposals do have an impact, even if it's not necessarily coming in the original form. They may be adopted by Republicans, and we welcome that if that's how they want to proceed. But it's not just salaries. It's not just minimum salaries for sure. We have to make sure that we're supporting teachers with fair pay all the way up, beyond just the minimum all throughout their careers. And we have to make sure that it's a place that people want to work. And if the teachers can be summarily dismissed without a fair process, that's not making it a place people want to work. We've got a teacher shortage. We need to address it, and it comes from treating them right.
There's a lot of other pieces of legislation that we will have to spend more time talking about when the session begins. But one last one that I want to touch on is a potential constitutional amendment that you're a sponsor on, and that is to produce the Arkansas Government Disclosure Act. This would be Freedom of Information laws. Again, another effort was made this last time around, but fell short. And again, this is a piece of legislation that had some bipartisan support when there was an attempt to change FOI back during a special session. What do you assess your chances of getting that referred to as a constitutional amendment in this session?
I think that has a real chance because, again, as you mentioned, there is bipartisan support for defending the Freedom of Information Act. It's accountability and transparency. It's a really important part of how we keep government honest. I think if you care about that, and there are people on the left and the right who care about it, and prevented some more wholesale attempts to dismantle it in a previous special session, then this is certainly a way that you can protect it, to enshrine it in the Constitution, to make it more difficult to go after it and undermine it, as people have repeatedly tried to do in our legislature.
He's Representative Andrew Collins, Democrat of Little Rock. He's the House Minority Leader in this upcoming legislative session. I'm gonna buy you a first aid kit, so for all the fights that you're gonna get to take on in the next couple of months.
Thank you. I'll take it.
All right, appreciate you being with us.
Thank you, Ruby.